Friends, I am just telling you a very simple thing, an example as to how the government of India is now toying before the US imperialist master. For example, now we are all living in a system where the vast majority of the people, there is a broad-based transaction platform which is called the UPI, Unified Interface, that is which is called the UPI. So this I was actually started in 2016. At that time only, in that year 2016-17, just 7,000 crore transaction in that year. But today it has grown by more than around 5,000 times. Now the total transaction in UPI is actually more than 314 lakh crore. So per year UPI transaction is this much. So it has now become the biggest, world's largest payment system. So the broad masses of the Indian people are now using it. Until 2016, we were all using the US MasterCard, the US Visa and such a credit and debit card system, and we were depending on the US. When the government started this, the US government was thinking that it is a localized experiment which will not have any future. But what happened was that it was unexpectedly grown, and now, as I have said, that it has become world's largest digital payment system. It is in this context that as these US MasterCard, Visa and US financial, these instruments were excluded from the Indian market, Indian financial market, the Modi government is now working under the diktat of American imperialism, and now US imperialism is now instructing Modi government that you should restrict this UPI transaction. And for restricting the UPI transaction, the Modi government is moving or is already brought a legislation for imposing a levy, a transaction levy, a tax on UPI transaction. Though it is not immediately implemented, there is a legal provision with the government now, so that the government can at any time implement it and it can restrict the UPI transactions in the country. The political motive is that the American government and the US trade representative, as part of the trade negotiations going on between India and America, is now saying that there is an exclusion of American companies, especially financial companies, from Indian market, and therefore they are imposing India, they are dictating India that is called restrict and this UPI payment mechanism, and for that the best method is impose a tax, a fee on every transaction, so that we cannot imagine the amount of money that will be generated by this mechanism to government, the revenue. For example, today the Reserve Bank of India has a surplus, and the Reserve Bank of India last year has given more than 2.5 lakh crore to the government from its surplus. A small amount of that money is sufficient to maintain the whole UPI transaction in India. So now the Nirmala Sitharaman, our finance minister, justifies this new bill, this new law, by saying that this UPI transaction is imposing a heavy burden on the government and the stakeholders, those who are managing these banks and all these institutions who are now managing, they are now bearing the burden. It is a false statement, because the RBI can easily manage this from its surplus, because it has already given the government this year, that the last year, that more than 2.5 lakh crore from its surplus. A minor amount from its surplus is sufficient to maintain the entire UPI transaction in India. So it is under American pressure that it is to appease the imperialist master under the diktat of US imperialism that Modi is now going for this law. So it is up to the people of India, the broad masses of India, that to resist this move. It is another instance as to the Vishwaguru, the so-called Vishwaguru, is to what extent this Vishwaguru is depending on US imperialism, US diktat. So it is up to the people of India, the democratic forces and all working class and oppressed to resist this anti-pro-imperialist move and come forward and exposing the real nature of Vishwaguru, that is Modi government